This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Let's bring on Connor O'Gara from Saturday Down South on the McLarty Daniel Hotline and get into some of this football stuff from this past weekend. Connor, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. You know, I'll admit, I did not expect Arkansas to put up the fight that it did. Did not think there was any world in which they were going into halftime with a lead in Death Valley. And even in a loss, I still found myself impressed, despite the fact that I understand the frustration when that second loss hits in the season.
Well, I also think there's a frustration that it's back-to-back losses by 3 points and a 1-6 record in games decided by 3 points or less in basically the last calendar year. So you got to find a way to clean up some of the mistakes. And look, I think everybody's going to have trouble covering Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. Mississippi State couldn't cover them. Arkansas covered them so-so for about a quarter and a half, and then talent took over.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I thought it was pretty lopsided, that matchup, and you knew it was going to be. I mean, you know, even if you were encouraged by what you've seen from Arkansas so far and what they've been able to do defending the pass, I still think that there are a lot of elements to this team that we're trying to figure out. You know, where is that identity on the back end? I think Brian Thomas is somebody that is continuing to get better for that LSU offense, and you see what a matchup nightmare it is. It's kind of pick your poison. It really is. I mean, Malik Neighbors, what he did a week earlier against Mississippi State, he was unguardable. Those guys don't really have much of a chance with the way that they move him around. And when Jaden Daniels is seeing a field the way that he is right now, yeah, it was just a matter of trying to keep pace. I think that those guys were always going to be able to get theirs.
Looking around the SEC, watching that Ole Miss Alabama game, what were your thoughts on that game? Has Alabama kind of ride this ship, kind of turned it around? You think they'll be all right moving forward?
I don't know that they've righted the ship. I think that they've figured some things out. Like, I still think that Jalen Milroe is going to make his mistakes. That interception he threw in the end zone was awful. I mean, it was absolutely terrible. Those are the types of mistakes that you just cannot afford to make if you're going to compete for a national championship. And, you know, I think defensively they did a really nice job on Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart has been just lights out to start the season in the way that they were able to pressure him. They really took away a lot of his mobility and what he's done so effectively, despite the fact that I think that you still would look at this matchup and say, well, Alabama kind of took over down the stretch. They're able to keep an Ole Miss offense that's been scorching hot kind of at an arm's length. And I think that's the identity of this team moving forward. We're not used to watching Alabama only score 24 points in a game, but you know, I still think that this team has a ways to go. It's going to be week by week. But they're not necessarily going to win a whole lot of style points. I know that they covered the spread, but I don't necessarily think that they have an offensive identity just yet. They don't have that go-to receiver. They're running the football better, but it's still not going to be the Alabama of old that we've come to expect. But still, at the same time, it's a nice win, and it was an absolute must-win, obviously, to avoid that second loss.
When we talk about the Alabama of old, we're really talking about what, like the last 6-7 years? How much of this is on the receivers? We talk about, well, you don't have the quarterback that you've had before. They don't have the receivers either. And maybe it's difficult to, you know, continue to bring in first rounders on an annual basis. I mean, Jalen Waddle and Henry Ruggs and Jamison Williams and all of that. It's just the list kind of goes on with that group. And maybe they hit a little bit of a bump in recruiting for receivers, but a lot of it has to go on that position group too, doesn't it?
I think it does. They have fallen off considerably. They don't have that guy that can just separate and really go over the top and beat you like a Jamison Williams, like Jalen Waddle used to. Obviously, the list is long of those great Alabama receivers, but, I mean, they just don't really have that guy on the outside that scares you. Who's that one that you're like, all right, we need to be able to game plan to contain him? Jermaine Burton's got 8 catches this year. Everybody keeps putting him preseason All-SEC. For what? That guy's in year 4 and hasn't necessarily shown that he can be that difference maker that everybody thinks he's going to be going into each of these seasons. And I look at around and I'm like, all right, well, Isaiah Bond, he's kind of a nice player. Jalen Hale, he flashed a little bit. He had that touchdown catch where Jalen Milroe was able to stand in there and take a hit. But they just don't have that guy that scares you. They thought Malik Benson was maybe going to be it. He was the number 1 JUCO recruit at the receiver position in the country, and he's been pretty much invisible. Corey Brooks doesn't have a catch yet this year. They just don't have those guys. And there are so many better receiving groups in the SEC, and they just, for whatever reason, have not been able to develop. This is kind of the second year in a row of that.
So tell me about the A&M receiver corps, because that's who Arkansas has got coming up this Saturday at AT&T Stadium. Evan Stewart, Aeneas Smith, we know they're very talented. Stewart's only played 3 games. I think he played fairly well this last week against Auburn. I don't know that they're as good as LSU, but this is one of the more dangerous receiver groups. Just a question of, can Max Johnson get them the ball? I don't know about Johnson. I know Weigman was really good for A&M, and I'm expecting that we see Max Johnson this Saturday.
I would expect Max Johnson's going to be out there. Connor Weigman's been phenomenal. He had a bad first half against Auburn, but that guy has been playing his tail off. This A&M offense with Bobby Petrino has looked really good, in my opinion, for the majority of this young season. And part of it is because they actually have the receivers to be able to stretch you. Evan Stewart's a stud. I don't know if there are 10 receivers in college football better than that guy, and he's only a second-year player. He's a former 5-star guy. Aeneas Smith, they rely on him so much in the slot, and he's more of a leadership guy, but he can still make you pay, and he's more of a move-the-chains type guy. They have options. They're very explosive on the outside. I'm not even talking about Moose Muhammad III, who's been a reliable guy for them at times. They can go over the top and beat you. Like, you see when Max Johnson came into that game against Auburn, they still want to attack downfield. That's going to be their bread and butter, their MO. This is not the A&M offense that we've seen the last 2 years, really even the entire time that Jimbo Fisher's been in College Station. They have the personnel to finally execute this offense. And if I'm an Arkansas fan, even if Max Johnson's out there, I'm not going into this one thinking that there's a considerable advantage, because I think they just have the pieces to be able to go over the top and beat you that way, which for an Arkansas team that obviously just allowed a bunch of passing yards is a really tough thing to stomach.
Did you get your eyes on that Ohio State Notre Dame game? I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I did. And, seeing the way that played out down the stretch, I was kind of thinking about, for those who didn't get to see that final play, wherein Notre Dame only had 10 defensive players on the field, I was kind of wondering how would that have been perceived in the SEC? Marcus Freeman still has a very high approval rating in South Bend, and I think nationally. But how many coaches in the SEC would we just be talking about on Monday, skewering them for making a mistake of that magnitude in that spot, game on the line? It was so costly. I mean, it was a great, fantastic game. I picked Ohio State to win a national championship coming into this year, so for the sake of my pick, I was kind of delighted to see that they were a little bit more physical, despite what a certain Lou Holtz said in the pregame. Ryan Day trying to dunk on an 86-year-old guy, weird move, in my opinion. Not something that I do in my free time, but a huge win for Ohio State. One of those games that kind of lived up to the billing and could be the sign of bigger things to come for the Buckeyes.
So you're the one, huh, Connor? You're the one who picked. You're the only one who believes in Ohio State. The one person who picked them to win a national championship, because as I hear, it's Ohio against the world, which it's always been that way. I mean, that's the state motto.
Can we put to bed the disrespect thing?
Please.
I think disrespect has run its course. I think we need to all take a step back and think about this. From Travis Kelce getting up on a podium after winning the Super Bowl and saying nobody believed in the Chiefs, Georgia players saying that they were going 7-5, which was a thing that Nolan Smith said on the Saturday Down South podcast he made up, and nobody was actually saying that. And now Ryan Day calling out an 86-year-old man after getting one of his biggest wins at Ohio State. Could we just chill on disrespect? Alabama, we had in the preseason J.C. Latham at SEC Media Days said that Bama feels disrespected because it's not number one in the country and it's not picked to win the SEC. Let's all just chill on disrespect. I think we've gotten to a place in the age of the internet where we listen to too many people. Maybe we should actually just start blocking out the noise and pretending that stuff doesn't exist.
Yeah, blocking out the noise. Coach Pittman did just that. What are your thoughts on him deleting his Twitter account?
Oh, I didn't see that yet. Oh, I've been writing all day, so I missed that one.
Well, Connor, here's what happened last week, Tuesday. He wiped the thing clean. Coach Sam Pittman on Twitter does not exist any longer. He spoke about it today in his Monday press conference, and spoke about it being the nastiness on the website, not the criticism, which I think he understands is going to come his way as a head coach of a major program. It's the nastiness. It was being called fat, all that kind of stuff.
That's lame. I mean, I hate to say it like that. Obviously, that kind of comes with the territory. That's just the way people are on the internet. That's stupid. Obviously, you're trying to lock in. It's a very important stretch for his career. this 4-game stretch that he's in game number 2 of. I mean, it's as brutal as anybody in college football. And hopefully he's in the right place mentally, because I personally, I'm biased. I like Sam Pittman a whole lot. I've shared those thoughts on these airwaves. The better question, though, is did he stay on Threads? Did he stay on Threads? Because to me, that's not totally blocking out the noise if you're dialed into what's going on. I haven't opened my Threads account, I think, in 4 months.
That's fun. Yeah, if you could talk about there's noise on Twitter or Facebook, there's a little tiny whisper on Threads. Just a tiny, you won't even hear it on Threads. It might be there, but you don't know it exists.
Yeah, I mean, what is his app of choice? I don't know. These are the follow-ups that we need to be able to get to Sam Pittman to show that he's really blocking up the noise. Is he still on Snapchat? I don't know. We got to figure these things out. You can't just say that you're getting off Twitter and then say that that's blocking out all the noise. We got to be able to get to all these other things that are in his life. But obviously there's clearly a mindset wanting to lock in, knowing that the margin for error is very slim right now.
Connor, when I look, I see Notre Dame, Alabama, LSU. They're the highest one-loss ranked teams. And right after that, you got Oklahoma, North Carolina, Washington State, Duke, Miami. Those are your other 4-0. Are you a believer in any of those teams right there, that those 4-0 teams, or would you still be a believer in Notre Dame, Alabama, LSU?
After Duke beats Notre Dame this weekend, I think everybody's going to be a Duke believer. If you haven't followed this story, yeah, we'll go on record and say that. I'm a Mike Elko guy through and through. I love what he's done in just his second year at Duke, a job that many people, myself included, wondered, like, who's ever going to win at a place like that? And they're hosting College Game Day for the first time this weekend. I think everybody got to see what they did opening weekend against Clemson, a game where they were just so much more physical, and they were clearly the tougher team. Like, I had them in my preseason top 25. I was kind of blown away that a lot of people weren't recognizing the production that they returned from a 9-win team and things that they did last year. But they're a team they're going to be in a mix. I don't know that they're quite going to get to an ACC championship, but that's very much on the table. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility, knowing that they already have the advantage against Clemson. Obviously, it's a little bit of a different structure this year with not having the 2 divisions, just best 2 teams in the ACC. But, yeah, I mean, I think Duke is the team that people are still sleeping on a little bit too much.
LSU, Ole Miss, one team Arkansas just played. The other Arkansas gets the following week. Does Ole Miss have a defense? Do they have a defense that can slow LSU or anybody else down?
Yeah, I think so. I think coming into that Bama game, I liked what Pete Golding was doing. They had 18 different guys in that team with a TFL. They had a lot of things that were really working well. And, top 25 in the country, I think they were in yards per play coming into that one. It wasn't like Alabama's offense dominated and totally took over that game. Alabama scored 24 points. It wasn't this offensive blitzkrieg. I still like kind of what they're doing on the back end. I think Prince, the corner, is a lockdown guy. In having somebody like Pegues up front, he's really fun to watch. But I don't know, it's so difficult to project. And in the preseason, I had Ole Miss beating LSU in this game, and LSU losing 2 games in the month of September, the first of which coming against Florida State. So I'm tempted to stick with this pick, but to me, it's about what does Jackson Dart do against ranked competition, because the splits between teams with FBS teams with a winning record versus FBS teams without a winning record, it's really, really stark, that difference for Jackson Dart. So I think this game kind of comes down to that. And Lane needs a signature win and to be able to kind of move past the embarrassment that was this past week of calling out Alabama's defensive play caller and then going into Tuscaloosa and promptly scoring 10 points.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.